Today we're going to be talking about creating a user deletion policy. If you have a consumer identity service and it's deployed globally in different brands and markets, you're most likely collecting a lot of user data. I wanted to talk a little bit about what it takes to maintain data that has integrity and will continue to keep your entire global service in compliance. All right, so let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome. If you're new here, thanks for joining. On this channel, I discuss everything CIAM related. This is everything from small medium business deployments to enterprise grade. I've worked with a number of enterprises all over the globe, consumer packaged goods, pharma, energy, and I'm here to talk a little bit about some of my experience and hopefully it's helpful. The first thing is to understand the differences between verified and unverified users. When you have a verified user, that means a consumer created an account and then they verified their account via some means, whether that's receiving an email and clicking the link or getting a PIN via their SMS. In those cases, you know that the consumer has verified who they are. Sometimes that can be done in one step. If your registration process is a one-time password like registration, well, they need to have another device in order to even complete that kind of activation, in which case you can assume that that consumer is verified right away. If they're unverified, a lot of times a retail-like market might want a consumer in the door as quickly as possible. So they create an account and they allow that consumer to shop or get services without having to verify their account, but maybe they have a period of time, like maybe they have 24 hours to verify their account via clicking a link in their email. But keeping tabs on verified versus unverified accounts are extremely important because if a consumer creates an account and then remains unverified for a period of time, then that consumer data is not really reliable. You can potentially track activity related to it, but it's really hard to verify whether that consumer is who they say they are and whatnot. So understanding the differences between verified and unverified accounts and then setting policies around that is incredibly important. The next is active versus dormant. So you might have a consumer that created an account at a certain period of time, maybe they verified their account, but that was 5 years ago and they've not done anything in your system since then. Well, that's a dormant account, depending on the time frame that you set. Setting these thresholds, active versus dormant, is also very important because it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. But if you have a global service, then this varies per country. So countries, they have rules by how long you can keep consumer records in your database for. So for example, in some countries it might be like 9 years, 6 years, something like that, where a consumer record can remain in your database but be in a dormant or unverified state. So the question is creating a matrix of understanding verified versus unverified, active versus dormant, and then countries that you're deployed into. And ideally what you want to do is create a policy by which a consumer who is unverified, how much does that data matter to you? Depending on what types of services they're actually able to access, maybe an unverified account can't even log in. They can register but can't log in. And in which case, what's the point of keeping that data around? Honestly, the more data that you have in your database, the more liability you have. So understanding that difference is good to clean it up on a regular basis. Active versus dormant is the same thing. What value are you getting out of that consumer data if they're dormant, if they've had a record but it's been dormant for 5 years? Those policies are also good for understanding when you want to reach out to a consumer. So if a consumer is active for a period of time and they go dormant for, let's say, a year, maybe there is some kind of policy that triggers some kind of marketing outreach to that consumer at that point. So, okay, we've got the first two dimensions, verified versus unverified, active versus dormant. Let's look at the next dimension, which is a country policy. So specific countries have policies, so whether you're in the US or the UK or you're in LATAM or you're in Asia Pacific, their countries all over the globe have individual laws about how much time you can keep a consumer data for. That's critical to this as well because let's say that you consider an unverified account to be valuable for one reason or another. Maybe there's activity, maybe they're allowed to access some services if they're not verified. You'll want to make sure that you bake into your privacy policy the country in which that consumer is using your services and then base your policy setting on those countries. So we have three dimensions. We have the unverified, verified, active, dormant, and then the country. Next, let's look at SMS considerations. This might apply to email also, but most likely it's mainly SMS. For a consumer that is registered in your system using an SMS number, especially in some APAC markets, you might have consumers who are registering with phone numbers, but then they never verify their account, in which case that number is essentially utilized in your system. If that's a fake account, then maybe a consumer who actually has that number can't register. They try to register, but they realize that there's already an existing account. And maybe there is some merge flow that you could take them through to say like, oh no, this is the real owner of that account. But at that point, there might be other data associated with it, and it just might not be very reliable. So in some APAC markets, it's actually a good practice to make sure that the consumer is verifying their account within 24 hours. And if they're not verifying their account within 24 hours, then that record in your database is essentially wiped from the slate so that you can open it up for whoever actually has that number. Especially in some markets like China where numbers rotate pretty regularly. You might have a phone number for a period of time, but then you rotate that number to something else. Maybe there's some kind of flow where you can take that consumer account and then add your new number to it. But you want to open up that number for someone else. Whoever has that phone number now, you want to allow them to register. So having these types of SMS considerations to remove users from the system pretty quickly is common. And in general, when it comes to removing people from the system, when it comes to removing consumer records, based on all of the dimensions that we talked about, all of the policies that you've set, generally speaking, you do this on a daily basis. You have some script that runs on a daily basis that checks all of the conditionals that you've set and then purges the user record. Some considerations for that script is that it runs in a period of time where there's the least amount of activity in your system to create, just so there's the least amount of impact. But also that script should have audit data associated with it. How many consumer records did it delete? And maybe there's some metadata that doesn't contain PII about the records that it deleted that it maintains for a period of a number of years as well. So the daily script has a lot of considerations along with it as well. Okay, so you have all of these policies set, you've got a script running. How do we then alert all of the apps connected to your system that consumers have been deleted from the system? Because most likely you have different vendors and different apps connected to your service. And so if a consumer is deleted, you kind of need to notify them that a consumer has been deleted so that there can't be a conflict in someone trying to log in down the road or trying to pay for something down the road. And so there should be a pretty robust event notification system. When consumers are deleted, then you can trigger webhooks or workflows or actions or something to downstream systems to let them know that, hey, this UUID, this ID, this consumer has been removed from the system. And so therefore process deleting it in your system as well. It's worth noting that our platform, Next Identity, does all of this and more. You can set policies based on country, based on considerations. You can set workflows to notify downstream systems all through the interface. The idea is to enable a service owner to basically control the entire landscape and keeping their whole system in compliance from a centralized hub. Being able to set these policies, being able to set these events, and all of these things through the console. If you want to hear more about that, please reach out, let me know. I'd be happy to give you a demo, shoot you an email with some more information. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this information helpful. And of course, if you want me to unpack any of the things that I scratched the surface on here, let me know. Thanks, everyone.